everyone, I'm Caro, the Mental Traveler, and before I begin telling you what this video is going to be about, I want to say that I'm quite excited because I rearranged my bookshelf this week, so even if it's not that different from the way it was before, I hope you guys like the new background setting. And now, about my review. Today, in this video, I'm going to be talking about Lolita by Russian author Vladimir Nabokov. I'll be talking about the book and its two movie adaptations. One came out in 1962 and the other one in 1997. And even though I won't be giving away any plot details, I will be mentioning why I like or dislike some of the characters, and I'll try to say that in the least spoilery way possible. In any case, I should warn some of you beforehand that this is not a story for everyone. It deals with the relationship between a man in his late 30s and a 12-year-old girl. So yeah, I'm a little bit nervous to be talking about Lolita because it's this sort of taboo subject to many people. But regardless, Lolita is considered one of the best novels ever written by many people. And yet, despite its critical acclaim and the way it manages to capture life in America in the late 40s, it had a very controversial publishing history, and I don't believe it's everyone's cup of tea. But I wanted to talk about Lolita because ever since I was in my late teens, I've loved the 1997 movie, but it wasn't until last week that I finally read the book, and something funny happened to me because I began reading the novel knowing that I should be open-minded about it, but then the further I read it, I was really hating the plot. But then as soon as I finished it, I knew that I had not only read a masterpiece, and I was feeling kind of nostalgic, but I think this is more because of Nabokov's beautiful style of writing, rather than because I was gonna bid farewell to the characters. Still, if you like classics, you should definitely give Lolita a try, because it's a true jewel of American literature. This is the story of the life of Humbert Humbert, a handsome European man in his late 30s who has a fancy for young girls that are around 9 to 12 years old, whom he refers to as nymphets. And the novel is told from his point of view, so the reader learns why he likes girls that are so young, and we learn a lot about him from his early childhood to his final days. But the core of the book is Humbert's love/obsession with a 12-year-old American girl called Dolores Hayes, whom he nicknames Lolita, and whom he meets when he is lodging at her house once he leaves Europe to start living in the United States. And just as the back cover of the book states, the novel leaves the reader wondering if Humbert is truly in love with Lolita, or if he's just this insane pedophiliac. Is he a silver-tongued poet or a pervert, a tortured soul or a monster, or is he all of this? And I mean, after all, human beings aren't completely white or black in character and nature, they're a mix of both, and I've always personally found great characters to be the more compelling. I give this book a 4.7 out of 5-star rating, and here are the reasons why. As I mentioned at the start of the video, Nabokov's, the author's style of writing is outstandingly beautiful. It's poetic, and I just can't think that I can praise it enough and make it justice. But also, I've always liked reading or watching stories that are considered controversial, but I've now realized that it's very different to watch something and to get inside the mind of the protagonist. So reading the novel kind of harmed the story of Lolita for me, because sure, when I was in my late teens, I kind of thought the movie was cool because I love Jeremy Irons. He's such a handsome man, and I thought that Lolita was more of this kind of forbidden love affair. I didn't really understand all that it entailed, but now that I'm older and I've read the book, it was just too much for me at times to be inside the mind of Humbert whenever he was thinking of 12-year-old girls. And regarding the character of Lolita, it's so sad that Humbert comes along and he just messes up with her head because he's this sort of father-lover figure at the same time. And sure, the book is very subtle when it's addressing this situation, but reading the novel, as I've said, changed my perception of the relationship between Lolita and Humbert, because I don't think it's a romantic forbidden love anymore, because this was sort of a really horrible and unfair deal for Lolita to be in. So even though at the end I was kind of feeling sorry for Humbert, I can't justify his actions just because at the end he realizes that he loves Lolita for the person that she is, not because she was a 12-year-old girl. This realization cannot atone for all the harm that he did to her for years, so I thought the end was very well handled. Humbert knows that he sort of destroyed Lolita's life from the moment that he made her the object of his obsession, because his take on love isn't very healthy. The outcome of the story is very fitting. This is not a normal relationship. And they lived happily ever after till the end of their days. Ending wouldn't have fitted at all with the story. In conclusion, it was a hard story for me to, but again, that's just another praise praise to the author for his ability to making me feel so much empathy for Lolita, even when she was behaving really awful. But Nabokov's words and setting really evoked in me this sense of claustrophobia and helplessness that Lolita must have surely felt more than once along the plot. But I don't give this story 5 out of 5 stars because the story is told solely from Humbert's point of view. So even though the final product is really good, and I understand why Nabokov wanted to focus only on Humbert's side of the story, Humbert's voice sort of drowns Lolita's, and we were meant to see the story of Humbert's life, not of Lolita's. I think it would have been a great thing for Nabokov to take on the challenge of writing from the perspective of a 12-year-old girl. And having Humbert narrate his life makes him an unreliable narrator. I do love the fact that the author forced this struggle inside me, where my personal opinion of the story was fighting against my more open-minded literary side take on the story, if that makes sense. This version came out in 1962 and it was directed by Stanley Kubrick. It's about 2.5 hours long and it's a very highly censored film, and it stars James Mason and Sue Lyon as Humbert and Lolita. A lot of changes had to be made into the page-to-screen adaptation. Kubrick wasn't very happy with it. I sort of agree with him because Lolita's age, for example, is changed. Rather than being 12, she's 16, and Humbert's is as well. He's not in his late 30s, he appears to be like 45. The movie had to take out a lot of the sexual undertones, and so the final product isn't really that faithful of an adaptation. And Nabokov, the author of the novel, wrote a script for the movie, and he was even nominated for an Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay. And yet the lines that we hear in the movie are not the ones that Nabokov wrote, because Kubrick ended up rewriting the whole script. But I do like the fact that in this movie I sort of got the sense that it's implied that Humbert had never fallen for a young girl up until he meets Lolita. It sort of suggests that Humbert's character fell for Lolita despite her age and rather because of it. But again, that's not true to the novel. And I didn't like James Mason's portrayal of Humbert at the start, but he sort of grew on me as the movie went along. And as to Sue Lyon, I think that she was a wonderful Lolita, but I would have loved to have seen her being allowed to give more depth to the character in her performance if the movie hadn't been so censored. I enjoyed this film, but it was simply alright. It was directed by Adrian Lyne. It's about 2 to 2.5 hours long, and it has a beautiful soundtrack by Ennio Morricone. And it stars Jeremy Irons and Dominic Swain as Humbert and Lolita. And just like in the previous adaptation, Lolita is aged up. She's in 12 here, she's 14. And Humbert's character is also older than in the novel because he's in his late 30s. Jeremy Irons was like 40 something when filming this movie. This adaptation is, to me, it's my favorite because it was the one that introduced me to the Lolita storyline. And yet, because I was so familiar with this movie adaptation, when I was reading the novel last week for the first time, I was really surprised because I didn't expect some really big differences that are in between them. For example, I wasn't aware that Humbert before Lolita has this history with falling for younger girls. And now that I've read the book, this movie leaves me with the impression that they sort of whitewashed Humbert into this sort of romantic tragic hero, when in the book he clearly isn't that. They tone down this in the movie. But I also think that one of the reasons why I like a lot this adaptation is because of Jeremy Irons. Not only, as I've said, he's one of the handsomest men that Hollywood has ever seen, but he also has this amazingly sexy voice.
Thank you, I'm honored to be singled out.
And whenever Jeremy Irons is narrating lines from the book in the movie, when he was breathing life into Nabokov's words, I got goosebumps.
Thank you for that.
And regarding Dominic Swain's portrayal of Lolita, at times I thought, particularly at the start of the movie, that she was a little bit too flirtatious. But I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because it got me thinking that maybe Humbert isn't that reliable of a narrator because we're only seeing the story through his point of view. So maybe Lolita isn't even really flirting with him at the start of the book every single second, but because everything she does he associates with sex. That's why they decided to make her in this movie more flirty, to show Humbert's utopic vision of Lolita in the flesh. Regardless, this is all I have to say about Lolita. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope that if you do watch either of the movies or read the book, you let me know so we can discuss this really controversial storyline. And even if you have already read or watched the movies, let me know. I want to talk about it with you. In the description box below, you can find links to the Goodreads page for the novel, links to both movies' trailers, and to their respective IMDb pages. I wish you a great day wherever you are. I'm Caro, the Mental Traveler, and I'll be seeing you soon. Goodbye.